Hello, folks, and welcome back to Dried Watermelon. We're looking at Two Towers, being the second part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. We're looking at major and some minor but important differences between the film adaptation and the novel, looking at Jackson's films and Tolkien's books. So the film here opens with Gandalf fighting the Balrog, and this is a lot of fun. It gives us more details about it, and it shows us a lot about it. I wish they actually kind of showed a little bit more because the novel actually doesn't describe the fight in great detail, but it does say that Gandalf smote him, and also they went down to the deep places where the Balrog lost his fire and became basically this big serpent-like creature. Not didn't look like a snake, but really what I mean is slimy, this slimy, slithering creature. And then they went up to the highest mountains again and fought there until Gandalf smote him down, essentially. So the battle isn't described in great detail in the novel, and also it's described later on, not at the opening, but visually I can see why Jackson did this to tie it in with the first one, and of course to kind of foreshadow Gandalf's return. So it makes sense to me why the change was made, but it is a pretty significant departure from the novel. In the novel, Gollum doesn't actually sneak up on the hobbits. They're basically waiting, yeah, lying in wait for Gollum. They know that he's behind them, and then they escape using the rope made out of elven hithlane, and then that unties itself because of elf magic, essentially. And then they wait for Gollum, and they aren't ambushed like this. Here, of course, Sam and Frodo are both ready too, so it's not that significant a departure, but it is a slight difference. Treebeard here is taking Merry and Pippin to see some wizard who turns out to be Gandalf, of course. In the novel, this doesn't happen. Instead, Merry and Pippin actually do connect with Gandalf, but it's not until after the storming of Isengard.
White Wizard. Saruman.
In Fangorn Forest, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli meet Gandalf, who is now Gandalf the White, in the film. In the novel, they actually do see another wizard first, and they aren't sure who it is, but of course we're assuming it's Saruman, and we find out later on as well. So this is a very subtle difference here. It adds a little bit more to the ambiguity and to the confusion, maybe even dramatic irony, because we aren't sure exactly what's happening with Gandalf the White at that point, and it makes it a little bit more tense.
Show yourself!
Now, here's a really, really minor thing, but many people have actually noticed it, or at least some people have, and it's an interesting point. But elves don't use saddles, or at the very least, Legolas doesn't. And I would suggest that most, if not all, elves don't use saddles. But of course, elf here is riding a saddle, so it's fine. It probably would have been very, very difficult to get Legolas or Orlando to ride without a saddle, and maybe not as safe as well. But maybe that's something they could have CGI'd out or something. Anyways, elves don't usually use saddles. Theoden is never literally under Saruman's power or control. He's definitely influenced by him through Grima Wormtongue's poisonous words and so on. He's also quite old and he's quite weak, and you could say more that his heart has been shattered and broken. However, there's no actual this kind of spell on him. You might say that there's kind of a mental or a spiritual kind of one in prison, or a spell that he's imprisoned in. But there's no actual spell from Saruman he's under. However, the book and Tolkien does describe his countenance being lifted in a sense. So I think this visualization makes sense and also is a nice way to show Gandalf's new power, I guess, and how he is truly Gandalf the White. I don't mind the change at all.
Theoden dies.
You did not kill me. You will not kill him.
Rohan is mine. Be gone.
In the novel, Theodred is described as being killed in the first battle of the Fords of Isen. He was also buried there in the battle site, so we wouldn't be seeing this happen, especially not in or near Edoras. But of course, the film does this to deepen our understanding of Theoden and also to build sympathy for him. And I would say also just to show the human toll that the Uruk-hai and Saruman's forces are having on the people of Rohan. There is no mention in the novel of Aragorn and Eowyn practicing sword fighting or practicing their skills this way at all. It does emphasize Eowyn's restlessness to be left behind and away from battle. It also shows some of the character relationship dynamics between Aragorn and Eowyn's fierceness as well. I have no issues with this. I think it makes sense from a visual perspective, but it is, again, another difference.
Fear neither death nor pain.
What do you fear, my lady?
A cage. To stay behind bars until use and old age accept them.
In the film, Saruman is talking to the Dunlendings and also the Wildmen. This doesn't happen at all in the book. I think that is a fair assumption to say that it's possible that something like this could have happened, but the book doesn't give any indication of it, so that's fine.
The horsemen took your land. They drove your people into the hills to scratch a living off rocks. Take back the lands they stole from you. Burn every village.
Elrond's reaction to Arwen and Aragorn and their love for each other, they're quite nuanced and they evolve as well. So in the novels, at first, he doesn't necessarily bless that relationship because he knows that they're not suitable for each other, that Aragorn is mortal, even if he is long-lived as one of the Dunedain. And Arwen, of course, is immortal, and he doesn't want to lose his daughter. So this makes sense, the way that the film is representing that. However, Elrond eventually sees how great a person Aragorn is, how noble he is, and he sees that he's going to become king of Gondor and Arnor as well, and it proves how worthy he is, right? And that there's also some elf blood in him too. So that changes, and it's quite subtle the way it happens over time.